Hello, this is Lionel. Today we're going to have a look to the history service. Just like my previous video, we're going to see some internal behavior. So, for example, for the example, I'm going to start with that screen. Oops. What happened? I'm going to start with that screen. When you see, for example, we're going to see the method who fetched the number of records to delete and the method to delete here. Okay, so stop the screencast. Let's start with the code of dialer app. So the history cleaner, the screen that you saw above, before. I'm in dialer app, source history page. We are starting with that method, HistoryManager. So I'm using here a QML component which is called HistoryManager, and that component exposes some methods to count or to delete some events according to a date and a type. For example, if I start with that one, it receives in input the type of event. In fact, you will see that there are two types of event in history service. An event can be of type text or voice. You know that history service is used both for call history and for the conversation view, the thread view in messaging app. Poof, poof, poof. Where am I? Yes, I'm here. So I have opened also the history service repository. What you have to see, what can we see here, is that it is split in several parts. The first part here, Ubuntu history, it is what will be exposed to other apps, QML apps. For example, if I return to the history cleaner, I use that imports Ubuntu history.0.1, and it is all the components that you see here. So if I'm looking for the history manager here, I can see the history manager who is exposing some methods, remove events, and get events count, as we saw just before. Here, get event counts. Okay. So this is an invocable method accessible from QML, and it receives the event type, as I explained you before, the maximum date, how it works inside. In fact, this library, this QML library, will talk with DBUS to the history daemon. In fact, we can see that the repository have Ubuntu QML components, have a daemon subdirectory, which is a standalone process of history service, and we have some plugins, the SQLite plugins, responsible to talk to the database directly, and some common headers here. So let's back to the history manager, get event counts. We see here that we are using another service instance, a manager. This manager is a wrapper around the DBUS DBUS manager, and we see that we're going to make a call by using that method and to pass the input parameters. So that method is declared, is exposed in daemon. It is declared here. This is a DBUS method name with arguments. So this is a special syntax to declare all that. And we see that we have in the daemon, we have also a DBUS manager who will translate the method received from DBUS to, he will be notified here, get event count. We see another get event count history daemon. So history daemon is the standalone process. We will listen to events and we'll listen to expose some methods. What else to say? We have a filter here. We're talking with the backend. So the backend is the SQLite history plugin. You can see here on the left. So this method is exposing, doing things in SQL directly. So this is a 3-step communication between the manager here and pass and trigger a DBUS call referring to that method, and it is catched, or it is triggered in daemon process. Okay. For the other method, it is a more complex method because it is asynchronous, and we're using here a callback. This is a way to handle asynchronous call, DBUS call. You will see here I'm using remove events from DBUS, but we see that we have some other processing here because we are watching for the results. But as it is in synchronous, we can use some callback. We can have a callback here which is called when it is okay or when it is not okay. Okay, so this is, I think that's all. To remind us, here we have the application dial app, messaging app. We import Ubuntu historic QML components. That historic QML components talk to history service throughout DBUS, and there is an internal processing for every SMS, MMS sent or received. But this is another story, and I talked about it before in the previous video. Yes, what else to say? If I go back to history cleaner, we saw that method is because it is a synchronous one, but that uses DBUS too, and that one is more complex because we are using a callback. That callback is a JavaScript function which is executed as we saw before. So this is a way to interact between C++ and QML code when we are in an asynchronous operation. Okay. So history service is exposes also lots of other methods to retrieve events and to query the database. There is lots of methods and a way to work with the database. So something important to know is the database actually is stored in local share history service. We see here history SQLite in the history database. We can have an overview of how it is made. Let's find an example. History SQLite. So as you see, you have some text events. Text events are messages, SMS, MMS, and voice events is a call history. Maybe you remember when we were on SQLite history plugin, we saw here that we transcript SQL query differently if we are in event type text or event type voice. Select count from voice event, for example, with the filter. Voice events, so you can see voice events. What else to say? I don't think I can show you because there are some personal datas. Okay, so yeah, just to remind that we can access SQLite not directly but with the method exposed from DBUS, because that part is separated at runtime from that one. So this is like two different services calling each other. Okay, so I think well, that's all for today. Bye bye.